You're listening to episode 295 of the Major Issues Podcast, and in this one, I try to cure my origin story-itis by watching Amazon Prime's Invincible Adam Eve special. The Major Issues Podcast starts right now! Hello, everybody out there in comic book land. My name is George Serrano, aka The Don. And if you're listening to this, you can only be here for one reason, and it's a brand new episode of the Major Issues Podcast, brought to you each and every week by ComicBookClique.com. And as always, I am joined by the astonishing, the fantastic, the amazing, the downright uncanny A-Rob, the Marvel God. Let the people know how you feeling. It's been a minute.
Yo, what's good, y'all? It's been a hot minute, actually. Yeah. How's everyone feeling out there in comic book land?
It's been going pretty okay. The last episode we did, I was talking in great length about what I perceive to be a bit of origin story-itis, and we're gonna see if we can cure it with the topic of today's episode, which is Adam Eve, the Invincible special that has come out that is trying to whet our appetites for Invincible Season 2, which doesn't drop until November 3rd. Releases are going to be few and far between as we continue to deal with this writer strike and the Screen Actors Guild strike. But the only person that knows a little bit more about that than me is the man who has scoured the entirety of the multiverse, looking for the newest and hottest, latest, and greatest things to come to rumors, speculation, castings, and more. So I will surrender the podium to A-Rob, the Marvel God, who I believe has a bit of news. What's going on out there in the world, A-Rob?
Man, I got news coming from all parts of the globe and all things comic book related and all things nerddom. I got news about Star Wars, Disney, Marvel, a little bit of DC. But we're about to get into it with Star Wars first. At the time of this recording, episode 3 of Ahsoka has dropped. Time to Fly, if you guys didn't know. And man, the show, it's going for me. It truly is. It's the episode 3 titled Time to Fly. It's the 3rd episode, you guys. A little bit of, no, I won't say a spoiler, but it's basically the episode shows how Hera is going to work, trying to convince the New Republic Senate that the Imperial Loyalists had a dangerous new cause to rally behind, the return of Grand Admiral Thrawn. That's all y'all getting from me.
Thrawn.
That Thrawn.
Now, I have heard that there's been a bit of a hesitation by some viewers to watch this series. People were seemingly burned out somewhere along the line by depending on what expectations were. You remember the mixed bag that was Kenobi. I dug it. Yeah. There was people that had very hard opinions when it came to that. Mando season 3 had its detractors as well. They felt that it had become the Bo-Katan show, and it became a whole thing about that, remember? There's been some trepidation here. Have you seen it? Have you felt it? And what do you think do you think this series is the answer to that kind of stuff?
I think it truly is, since Ahsoka is one of those beloved characters of Star Wars. It's a good character for us to rally behind and a good jumping off point for the new trilogy of movies that the show is setting up with Grand Admiral Thrawn. And you guys who've read the books or the novels, they're adapting the Darkness Rising trilogy of books. They're loosely adapting it, just like Marvel adapts their books for the movies and comics and whatnot. So, right now, I've seen pretty good fanfare. The first episode got a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. Second episode following strong, and the third episode is really grown. Like, Ahsoka's grown on me. The first 2 episodes, I wasn't digging the stoicism with her. She was really stoic. It was like, sniffs. Okay. A lot's happened. A lot's changed. She's gone on a journey. She's a whole Ronin now. And now in episode 3, a little bit of like spoiler, it feels like it's Rebel season 5 almost. Just a continuation of their story. And I'm here for it all. But the show is really just growing on me as a whole. Like, it's really just leaning into Ahsoka's all her strong points and all her strong traits as a character. And I can't wait to see what they do with her with the next 3 episodes.
Yeah, I did hear that the 3rd episode really starts to focus on the dynamic and the like the dynamic of the team starts really fleshing out all the other characters and making them. You start to really realize everyone's role, why everyone's
Yeah.
important, and how they all come together, and that's super important. I wanted to mention, did you hear that they're supposedly doing a Pokemon live action drama in Japan?
I have. I literally just saw that, and I'm if they get Ryan Reynolds to voice Pikachu, then that series is gonna do so good.
Why a drama?
Yeah, when they said a Pokemon drama, I thought about it. Like, what if Pokemon existed in our world? Like, imagine a giant Beedrill, like a Beedrill,
Yeah, yeah.
a giant Hornet, or a lava monster, or a
His
Mud monster,
glasses, he
or
can't see without his glasses. Beedrew
a,
got him.
just
Beedrew
yeah.
done got, Beedrew done got it. Yeah, it'd be a
Like
scary freaking world, man.
Like, so I can see like the real worldness, for lack of better words, with Pokemon. It could be a good drama, like, Pokemon eat Pokemon. That's not in the
Yeah,
show, but that's in life. Animals eat other animals. They did a
yeah,
little bit in season one where we saw a Gyarados eat a Magikarp. That's just like big fish eat little fish.
yeah. And isn't like slow poke tail like a delicacy or something like that? I
Yeah.
heard.
Yep. Tauros meat is really good.
Yeah, yeah, that's so messed up. So it says that the new Pokemon series will tell the story of Madoka Agaki, a recent college graduate who quits her job in a port town to move to the bustling city of Tokyo. It's there that Madoka joins an advertising agency focused on adventure. As she begins working, Madoka finds herself disillusioned by life in the city, but things take a turn when her mom sends her a care package. The box contains Madoka's old Game Boy with Pokemon Red included, and the heroine soon
Nice.
discovers some important life lessons from the hit game. So wait, they're not even Pokemon. Wait.
Wait, wait,
She
wait,
didn't play
wait,
the
wait,
Game Boy?
wait.
That's what it
Is
is?
this
She didn't
about
play
to
the Game
be?
Boy?
Is this about to be like one of those? Is she about to get isekai'd into the game?
I thought I thought that's what that would be. It'd be funny as hell because they could just do it all 16-bit. That's gotta cost what, like $1.50 now,
Right?
and they could
I'll
do
watch it.
the okay. That's what I'm saying. Hey man, when they start playing all those jingles again from that game, I'm gonna get thrown right back. I'll remember
Man, if the show starts off with
that.
this is perk to it.
All the text.
And then boom, meet
Oh,
a monster and just
ridiculous.
oh man, no, that show's gonna bring all the nostalgia. If they do it right, I have faith in Japan. Japan doesn't really like miss when it comes to like, okay, let me back up. Live action adaptations of anime have been like hit and miss, but they've been going upward lately. But like,
Yeah,
hold on, I had to slow down for a sec.
I dig it. I dig it. Yeah, I guess that gives an older generation an opportunity to see like their versions of heroes, in a more dramatic setting, in a more adult setting, and it'll kind of pull
Yeah,
to the nostalgia. I mean, I'm gonna look at this. I want to see how when they decided to make this, when this was decided to be developed, because this feels Barbie adjacent in terms of like taking a property and sort
a
of
little
using
bit.
it to kind of explore your own stuff here. But hey, women are getting the job done, so I'm not even mad. Another woman getting the job done. Zendaya says she wants to play a supervillain. You think the girl's got the chops? What do you think? What do you think she
Oh
can do? What
yeah,
do you,
I think
can't
she
be
got
Marvel,
it.
right? It would have to be DC.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, they could multiverse her. There's been some
Yeah, they come
evil
off
variants of
her.
a MJ.
Mary J. Every time I hear that, I think of him screaming it in the animated series.
It's Mary J.
Mary J. Yeah, we've not really seen her play villainous roles before.
No,
And
she's playing angsty characters, broken characters, angry characters, but not a villainous character.
oh yeah,
That
I
would be
think the
interesting.
darkest would probably be her character in Euphoria, who is like
Yeah.
drug addled and going through those kind of addictions and stuff. But yeah, I think she's got the chops.
Oh
Um,
yeah, definitely. But hold
all
on, I
right,
got some. Speaking of more chops,
more chops on the grill.
more chops on the grill. In addition, if you guys didn't know, in addition to Nicolas Cage coming back as Ghost Rider, Jennifer Gardner also returning as Elektra in Secret Wars. I don't know. I was just want to throw that back out there because I just
No, I guess it
recently,
makes sense because they've already been confirmed. Well, at least she's been confirmed for Deadpool.
right? Yeah. So like now confirmed for Secret Wars and just watching, I just recently just rewatched Ben Affleck's Daredevil.
Hmm.
I don't know why she got an Electra movie, but I can definitely see the character come back again, just as like a redemption. Just
Yeah.
bring her and Evanescence.
Yep. Just doing her technique, her unique technique with the sandbags and all that kind of stuff, playing Evanescence in the background.
Right, that's all we
It's
fans
funny.
want.
It's funny that we're getting more and more stuff confirmed for Secret Wars because last I checked, I think they might have dropped both. Is it directors or screenwriters for those properties?
They dropped both directors. My hope
Directors,
is that
right?
they're bringing back the Russo brothers. Like,
My man, I mean,
so,
those guys are kind of like chilling. They would have to really bring the bag over because it's a lot to handle
oh yeah.
the all those properties. You got to think it was difficult in 2019, but even more difficult now, given the amount of projects and time that because
Oh yeah.
the whole math is something along the lines like Phase Four, um, in length, as far as all the television shows, movies, and stuff like that, is more than phases one, two, and three combined, is what I heard.
Yep. Three
Uh,
times bigger.
right. And somebody, whoever heads these Avengers movies, these ensemble films, will have to have kept track of every single component to not break continuity and for it to make sense and have the tone of every character, and getting all that right. That's a hell of a headache if you've never
That's a
done it
hell of a
before.
job. That's a whole
Right.
workload.
So I'll be
Whew.
very interested in seeing what happens when it comes to that. And now the latest thing is that the most recent film that will be coming out, The Marvels, is set to have a 107-minute runtime, the shortest runtime since
The
The Incredible
absolute
Hulk.
shortest. And I'm really hoping for that, and that's probably because of the edits that they had to do in the reshoots. I do remember that they were talking about that they did edit out a lot of the dance numbers from the movie. And if you've seen a
Uh,
Broadway production or any kind of musical, those dance numbers can be 12 to 15 minutes long, 20 minutes probably, like a whole scene. And they cut a lot of that out of the movie because if you guys don't know from the synopsis or the trailer, the movie takes place not only say majority but on a dance planet, a planet of just
that's
chill
funny.
dancers and whatnot. So they cut a lot of those dance numbers out to really focus on the characters and basically saying that it's kind of like Miss Marvel season two for Imana Vellani
Yeah.
and a starting off point for Captain Marvel in the greater landscape of the MCU and introducing Monica Rambeau like as Photon, you know. So heavy, a lot to do on the cosmic side and telling a good story at the same time.
I guess I'm a little confused as to whether or not I should take this as a leap of faith and the cutting the runtime. Have they learned the lessons of, let's say, a Thor: Love and
Mm,
Thunder, or is this a knee-jerk reaction to things like the very vocal outcry of people who dislike things like She-Hulk, other female-led Marvel stuff like Miss Marvel when it had came out? I hope they didn't
I
lessen
hear that.
our women in an effort to meet the incels halfway is what I'm trying to say.
Right. I feel that. And I hope it's not too. I'm really
They
leaning
need
on the
incel
like
money too,
quality.
bro. You don't get to 2 billion without incel money. You get to 1 billion. We saw that with Miss Marvel. I mean, but Captain Marvel. But if you want
Right.
that
We
two
saw
billion,
that.
you need everybody to be down. So yeah, I think
That
that's interesting.
I'm really leaning towards the quality over quantity because of the
Yeah,
mixed fanfare of reviews that Phase 4 has gotten and Phase 5 just started getting with Quantum Mania. Guardians was amazing. Guardians has never missed. But everything
right.
else that's come out, it's been like, the mixed fanfare review, basically. Not five
I
stars across the board.
I
So I
even thought.
really just
Did you see Blue Beetle?
I still have not to this day.
I think it's okay, but the film is 3 hours. It's 3 hours long. It's 2 hours long, and I think that's a bit long.
For Blue Beetle, I can see that. For origin story, definitely I can see that being a little bit too long. But if there were, what was the goal for the movie? I mean, I don't, you already covered it, but like,
No, no, no.
spoil
It's
me.
cool.
Like,
We
what was
could.
some stuff?
No, there's not really a goal. It doesn't really talk about any other superheroes. It doesn't establish much besides the idea that Ted Kord exists.
Oh,
And
okay.
Ted Kord is lost. Um, uh, or he's presumed to be dead, is what I'll say, while keeping it spoiled. Try to keep it spoiler free. Um, in case people haven't seen it, because they haven't been able to advertise it because of the writer's strike and the Screen Actors Guild strike. So I
Right.
thought it was a perfect standalone origin story, but I think we've seen enough of these that it's hard to watch it without saying, "Seen that before, seen that before," seen that before. And the
Right.
villain is the superhero, has the superhero's powers, but not perfected because of the Ironmonger, Iron Man sort of.
See Ant-Man, see Blue Yellow Jacket.
Bro, there's a scene, and this I'll say because I don't think it ruins anything, but there's a scene in which the villain is shown a PowerPoint presentation that she made, like a video presentation of, like, with this tech we can make an army of super soldiers capable of doing, like, it's almost the exact Yellow Jacket presentation that they show. And I look around to see, like, no one else noticing this. Great performances and stuff. It's an incredibly safe movie, is what I'll say. And for some people,
Solid.
safe equals solid, 100%. That's what I'm saying. For some people, whatever. But, like, we've seen some of the highest highs when it comes to the adaptations of this medium, and I'm kind of looking for something a bit more daring, a bit more. I feel like Across the
I
Spider Verse was the
feel that.
opposite of safe. So, like even kind of focusing on Gwen a bit more than Miles in that. Like, that was a risky move, again, because people could just be pulled out straight up out of it, and then leaving it in a cliffhanger, another risky move. But I'm looking for more daring. I feel like we've been at this game now for about 20 years, if you want to even count, like the X-Men series, the Spider-Man series, and all that kind of stuff. Now we've seen everything under the sun. We've seen ensemble films where superhero teams get together. We've seen hero origin films. We've seen villain origin films. We've seen everything under the sun. So if you're gonna come, I feel like you gotta kind of come correct, and you gotta kind of come with a new, exciting sort of. What I would recommend is, I really liked Mutant Mayhem, Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem.
Ah,
I thought Mutant Mayhem was exceptional because I think that they did
facts.
stuff. Again, you watch that that's a property that can't die. Turtles can't die, man. Those guys
They've been around
indestructible,
since the 80s. They ain't going nowhere.
indestructible. And so many different people have put their own touches on the lore and have added elements that continue on as soon as other creatives choose to pick them up and use them in their own properties and stuff. But watching it kind of reminded me when we first saw Tom Holland play Spider-Man, and I'm like, oh, a child playing Peter Parker. Like, who would have thought?
Right?
And
Got a
so it was very
grown man
similar.
in leotard? They actually got a teenager?
Yeah, the turtles are voiced by teenagers, and it feels weird that they're not all sounding like New York cab drivers who smoke 30 packs of cigarettes, but it makes sense to the universe because they were always intended to be teenagers. So when they are being immature about pizza or name calling or any of that kind of stuff, it makes a lot more sense than, hey, yo, hey, yo, I'm walking here, kind of
Right. And that's what
terms and
really
stuff.
made that film just like take off because they really leaned into the teenage part of them.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
older films leaned into and even the cartoons and that animated movie, they leaned into the ninja aspect. But really what people fell in love with was the teenage aspect of them. That being young again, not having a care in the world, only eating junk food and doing what you want.
Yeah,
That's
and
what kept the project alive.
100%. And the thing is, one of the things that made the Turtles take off initially was that 80s cartoon, right? And
Yeah.
in the right place at the right
Cowabunga,
time,
dude.
yeah, in the right place at the right time with the right talent, you could make these cartoons, these animated series, these animated characters iconic. I say all this to say, sadly, the voice actress for Harley Quinn, the inspiration
Nah.
for the entirety of that character, passed away, Arlene Sorkin. She was a college friend of Paul Dini, the co-creator of Harley Quinn, and also played a ditzy clown, blonde clownish character on the show Days of Our Lives, which greatly inspired um, Harley's actions in the series. A character that became so iconic in an animated series, one could even argue a throwaway character. She was meant to be a henchwoman,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
Joker. and now
Because
she's
Batman had
possibly,
Robin.
I would argue she's possibly top 10 most recognizable DC characters today in 2023. You can show that picture to somebody and say, who is this person? They'll say Harley Quinn, which is bonkers
Facts.
because there's older characters who have existed and have been written
Way
and,
older.
and they brought up, I think a lot of people, if you would have showed them Ted Kord's picture, they'd be like, is he the Tick? Like, what they
Right?
wouldn't, they wouldn't get it, but they've done a great job at keeping Harley afloat, and it all starts at Arlene. So, rest in peace to a
Rest in
juggernaut of
peace.
a voice actress who basically started it all the popularity for that character, which I think is terrific. Um,
Yeah, facts.
I say that to also say that, we'd all say great professional wrestler. I know we don't do that really on this podcast, but as a professional wrestling fan and a fan of all things sort of kind of fantasy, we lost Bray Wyatt at the age of 36 from a heart attack. Heart complications that were exacerbated due to him catching COVID, a creative juggernaut
Ooh,
who really helped me through some creative blank spaces in my life. It's so crazy to see people who love to be creative because it doesn't seem to stop. It kind of flows, and their only frustration is being able to focus that energy, right? It's always the energy
right.
almost bursting out of every scene, whether they're a great songwriter, a dancer, a director. They're seemingly bursting with potential, but it's about getting it and focusing it in the right places. And when Bray was able to do that, it was some of the best television out. So he will be greatly missed, but his spirit lives on through this creative venture because through watching him talk, I gained confidence in being able to speak and speak more in public, and now we're
Nice.
creeping on episode 300. So yeah, we will continue that and every other legacy that we can here as a part of the Major Issues podcast. We're not trying to stop, and I guess DC ain't either. They're saying that Aquaman and Lost Kingdom is still sticking to its release date.
Right.
Um, More so than
Uh,
almost any other film, I don't know what this is gonna be. Why is there not
I
a trailer? What are they scared of, bro? What are they scared of? Tomorrow or the next day?
they're
One of these few
afraid. They
days.
are
It's gonna
afraid
be
of
three
these
months
numbers.
away.
3 months
We're
away.
creeping on
What else
September.
comes out in 3 months? What else comes out? Oh, so they're releasing Aquaman in the same around the same time as Loki season two.
Well, they're doing in December, so I guess that's 4 months,
Oh,
if I'm
four
getting
months.
that
Okay,
right.
December.
Nine.
Okay.
9 to 10
Well,
is
hold
one, 10
on.
to 11. No, no, no. 9 to 10 is 1 month, right? 10 to
Yeah, 9
11
to
is
10,
another,
10,
11 to
11, 11,
12.
12.
So that's
Yeah,
three. It's roughly like
yeah,
three and a
three.
half months, we'll say. Yeah. But
Okay,
yeah,
well,
by
there's
then we would have
rumor.
had Loki, Echo, and the Marvels would have already come out.
Yep. Yep. And I think there's rumor has it that there's gonna be another special presentation that drops in December. In addition to
That'll be
that,
cool.
Marvel has kind of announced that they're doing well, besides the whole overhaul on the quality and quantity control, instead of releasing 4 to 5 movies a year and 6 to 7 shows, they're reducing it now to release going back to kind of like how phase one was, releasing 2 to 3 movies a year with 2 shows a year, which is a total of 6 to 7 or 6 to 8 projects, which is fine. That's totally yes, not over, not too much and not too little. The perfect amount
Mhm.
of content. And with that, they
Yeah.
announced 5 new. Well, we kind of already talked about it, but these are confirmed 5 special presentations that are coming out post strike. Let me say that
Right,
post
right.
strike.
Things in the oven that they're working on.
Right. But confirmed just on what's that dude name on Twitter? I think it's my
My
morning
time to
fresh.
shine.
Yeah, my time to shine. Hello.
Yeah,
They tweeted
yeah.
out that they still confirmed that Ghost Rider is still will be is like I won't say in production, but it will still continue production post strike. In addition to Ghost Rider, we're like also getting a Nova special presentation, which we can finally get to see what Thanos did to Xandar in Infinity War.
Right, right.
And keeping it cosmic, there will be also a Silver Surfer special presentation, which will come out before the Fantastic Four movie, so we can get introduced into Norrin Rad, how he became Silver Surfer, and then how he became the Herald of Galactus.
I kind of like that line.
And
Keep it cosmic.
Yep, yep, yep. And also in keeping it, I guess, more cosmic, if you can call this character cosmic. We talked about it before, but the Mephisto special presentation is still confirmed to come out with Sasha Bowen Cohen. Sasha Cohen? Baron? How you
Yeah,
say his name?
you're right. Sasha Baron
Yeah.
Cohen, you're right.
All right. So yeah, with him, and then also in addition to that, the last one, kind of weird for me. Not to say weird, but it's just the place that they choosing to release it after the fact he's being introduced. The Sentry is getting a special presentation with Stephen Yin playing the character in the Thunderbolts. His special presentation will be released after his introduction in the Thunderbolts movie, which will be in 2025, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, I mean
So
the scale's gonna keep shifting so long as this strike happens. I don't think anything's set in stone anymore.
yeah, you're right. Yeah, but there is something that is set in stone. World War Hulk, the movie, is coming in 2026, post strike. In addition to that, with season two of She-Hulk,
I heard that that's gonna cause a lot of online discourse. I'll
I
say.
don't see how She-Hulk was the absolute comic accurate like TV show that Disney Plus has produced. Like in terms of just like if you read a sensational She-Hulk comic or Savage She-Hulk or something, if you'd read a current She-Hulk comic and then watch the show, you'd be like reading it, watching the show, just like, oh,
Yeah,
that yo, they got that from what? That's Jennifer's like that. Yes, Jennifer Walters is like that. If you pick up the comic and read it and watch it, yes, this is the 100% most accurate thing they produce. So yeah,
right.
I see. I can see why
I
they make a
think
season
I
two.
think Loki I think Loki season 2 is really going to tell whether or not the audience has more room in their stomach for this, because we saw a lot of drop off for Secret Invasion,
Oh
for
yeah.
various reasons. I think it's kind of ironic that She-Hulk made such a biting remark about how they handle the end of these films and television shows, only for them to do the same thing that she kind of made fun of them for doing. So I'm hoping that they've learned some lessons. But again, if there's any property that seemingly is the compass for the MCU, it is Loki since the first season dropped. It's kind
Definitely.
of been setting the entire tone of the MCU with this grand idea of the multiverse, time travel, the sacred timeline, He Who Remains, Kang the Conqueror, Miss Minutes, etc., and so forth. Um, but I do think that another thing that people are rubbing up against, and I didn't think about this until like recently, is this idea that you'll see a film, it'll set up some very interesting stuff. The joke is always the celestial in the ocean, right? Like that.
Right.
Um, and then like we don't address this stuff for years, like years. There's some of this stuff that had been introduced, since WandaVision, and it's been 2 years, 2 years and change, and no one's kind of gotten to it. No one's kind of explained it. We still don't know what sent the Shang-Chi beacons, you know, a flutter.
That's true.
We
That's
don't know
very
what
true.
Val's doing with the U.S. agent. We don't know what Sharon Carter is doing as the power broker. And I'm not saying that they don't mean to answer this stuff. I'm just saying like we kind of need something now, because I feel like again they play soccer and they just kick it to the next property and say, no, just watch the next one. We'll explain it in that one, and then they don't, and then just kick it to the next property, and then so I'm still
Right.
wondering for about a lot of this stuff, but hopefully Loki has some answers.
Same, because like you said it, like the phase four left at least 12 different cliffhangers or just 12 unanswered questions that we still don't know to this day, like we still don't have answers for.
Yeah,
I do have faith that phase five will address some of these, like in Captain America Brave New World, they will address the statue in the ocean. It's a new
yeah,
element, it's a new thing, countries want it. So there's a fight for it. Uh, Eternals
yeah,
2 will address that eventually in 2027 with their own standalone, not standalone, but self-contained story again. Like Eternals was self-contained, even though it affected the world, but no other Avenger, no heroes, no one else was involved in it, you know?
yeah. I also have a semi mid take that I say it's mid because I think it's a pretty standard take, but I've come around to it, and I almost feel dirty even saying it. It's this idea that Secret Invasion is okay, but it would have been better with the Avengers. Multiverse of Madness is okay, kind of would have been better with the Avengers. I feel like a lot of this Phase Four stuff, the big stories that they're pulling off the shelf, were better in the original form because they had the Avengers in it. And by
Yeah,
trying to do it without
that was
them,
the thing.
it feels
Crossovers.
weird. It feels weird to do them without them. And I understand that these projects are meant to spotlight other, heroes and characters and stuff like that. But sometimes it just feels like something's missing, And I miss my team. We haven't had a team now for what, 4 years?
Yeah, 4 years since uh yeah, Endgame. Yeah.
Yep.
Going on 3 years. 3 years. 3 years? No,
Right,
4 years. 4 years. Yeah, 2019. 4 years.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's been 4 years since we had an Avengers team. Yeah.
That's the longest, right? Because I mean, we've had one at least since 2012, 10
Yeah,
years
then
ago.
2015 and then
Yeah,
2018, 2019. Yeah, this is the longest we've gone without an Avengers film, and it will still until 2025 when they split Secret Wars into two parts. So
yeah.
until 2025, that's where we might get a pseudo Avengers team. Actually, I just remembered that they've talked about it. There will be kind of an Avengers special presentation for Secret Wars. I don't want to say like an Avengers team, but it's like a team up special to show like where all the heroes are at and how they come together. Because there was rumored that a Kang special presentation was on the horizon.
I think
So
that
who
that's
knows?
incredibly interesting. I think the idea of a new set of Avengers, but not just a new set of Avengers. I think the idea of um because more in the comics, the roster changes constantly. Same thing with the Justice
Oh
League, right? The
yeah.
roster is constantly in flux. What's unique in this circumstance is that we kind of only have ever had one team. We've had other additions to the team, but we had like one core team. The idea that any of our newbies that would have to step into those hollowed shoes, right? The statue, the people who have given their life, in the Battle of New York or the Battle of Earth or all that kind of stuff. Like those are literally the biggest shoes to step in. And I
The
think it would be
biggest.
kind of interesting to watch our new crop of heroes have to deal with. I'm not Steve, I'm not Tony, I'm not, but like someone's gotta do something. So like let's get together and see how this works. And I
Let's
also
get
want to see
it.
the ragtag anti-heroes and the Thunderbolts try to try to
Right?
get on the same page and see what works there. I think that
Oh
that
yeah,
idea is
no. Phase 5 is setting up a lot of super teams, Young Avengers, Thunderbolts, the new Avengers, and the X-Men on the horizon in 20, well, I'm just gonna say Phase 7.
is there any truth to the rumor of a Scarlet Witch sort of secret presentation? I've been hearing Witch's Way or Witch's
I have
something.
seen that I have like I heard a rumor that they were
Mhm.
gonna come out with another special presentation for the Scarlet Witch and the Witch's Way or the Witch's Road, which will segue into Coven of Chaos or Agatha's House of Harkness or Coven. It's Coven of Chaos, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's
House of
supposed to
Harkness
segue
does
into
sound good
that.
though.
Right? But I think it would have focused way more on Agatha instead of all of the witches in general. But
Yeah,
it is supposed to
yeah,
set up how it's supposed to show how she survived what the events of Multiverse of Madness and setting off where she's supposed to go from here on out with the Kang multiversal story. Since she is a Nexus being, the Scarlet Witch, you bring ruin to everything, destroy all creation and all that.
yeah.
And I'm hoping that they do this story from the comics about the celestial prima donna. When Kang went around kidnapping
Oh yes, yes,
Agatha
yes, yes, yes.
Harkness, Mantis, and Scarlet Witch, and because he wanted to like birth the most powerful being in all of creation.
Right, right, right. Yeah.
So I'm really hoping they're going that way, just because all the multiversal shenanigans.
And we have confirmed castings, but not what they're playing, which makes me think that they're playing fast and loose as to the direction that the show's supposed to be going in. Coven of Chaos, because that was also one of those shows that when they greenlit, a lot of people were like, "But why? Like, but why?" Like a whole show about Agatha doesn't seem to make sense until people were like, "This is possibly a reintroduction of Wanda."
Yeah, basically, especially when they added character actors like Charlie Cox, Abby Plaza, it really fleshing out and and casting the characters to play her two sons, and also Hulkling's going to be in the show. They casted I forgot the actor's name. I posted it on my page, y'all. Y'all can go and see it. But Hulkling is also going to be in the show too, as Wiccan's boyfriend.
I can't wait till they say that they made up their relationship for the show.
Hey, and I'm for it. Well, it's not been made up. If you read
It's
comics,
been,
people,
yep,
it's
been around
been
a
there
hot minute,
since the
man.
early 2000s.
Wait till
Like,
y'all
and
get a
with
look at
Hulkling,
MCU's Iceman. Y'all gonna trip.
oh my God, yeah, man. People are going to lose their mind when X-Men come out, because then the real fans are going to have to be like, so y'all not X-Men fans, because this is civil rights, gay rights, black rights, like all the
Yeah,
rights. X-Men, glory, like they embody that
yeah.
equality. Every
At
race or
least I've
being or
chosen a
culture.
side. You know.
Right. I would never forget that scene in X-Men 2 when the mom was like, "Have you tried not being a mutant?" I was like,
Yep.
"Have you tried
And
not being stupid?"
the thing is, the funny thing is, that is said to Iceman. The obvious joke is that it's a joke on like conversion therapy, like this idea that you could just
Right,
not be
conversion
gay.
therapy. Right.
You know, that you choose it, so you could just choose to not be it is the idea. And the idea that Bryan Singer did that moment with Iceman, not knowing that he would eventually come out as a gay superhero, I think is ironic as hell because that guy had, to my knowledge, banned um, comics on set. So he had no clue that was gonna go in that direction. I think that's pretty ironic. But yeah, man, there's still so much that the MCU has to offer, but I can't help but feel like their hands are tied either in litigation, contracts, or something that's not letting them show the true strength of their power and their roster currently.
I do feel that. That's why when I talked about earlier about the quality over quantity and reducing the amount of content they're putting out, they're done with the whole $200 million budget, 6 episode format. Like they're chalking that. They're just going right out the door. And I really hope to go back to how they made Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Punisher, Luke Cage. That kind of quality writing, that kind of quality storytelling, not big budget. You don't need all the spectacle and CGI, just great actors delivering great lines.
Yeah,
So,
with
instead
emotion.
of putting out, yeah, with the weight of it all, you know,
Yeah,
like instead of putting out 6 shows in one year, just put out 2 shows, both having like 12 or 15 episodes.
something good, man. Make people watch it before you put it out too,
Right? Test that. Test it with a good audience, a mixed bag audience, fans and general audiences alike.
and give us Mooney season 2, please.
Please,
Please
please.
and thank you.
Uh,
That's all I want.
Thank you.
That's
But
all I want.
that's all I got on the news though, for real, for real.
Well, let's thank A Rob the Marvel God for bringing us the news. Speaking of season 2, Invincible season 2, it's on its way. Luckily, it was recorded and kind of been situated before this writer strike. And rumor has it that also season 3 has been recorded as well. So I don't know if animation is under the Writers and Screen Actors Guild stuff, so they might still be
Uh,
able to. They might. I don't know what the legalese is around that, but we were able to get. Not only are they done with season 2, but they gave us a bit of a special presentation, um, a prequel episodes of sorts called Invincible Adam Eve. In this special prequel episode, Adam Eve Wilkins discovers her superpowers as a young girl and must come to terms with her own sinister origins as she discovers a family she never knew that she had. Um, were you a big fan of Invincible, and are you excited for the prospect of Invincible season 2?
I fucking love Invincible. Back in the day, back when I was like 10, 11, back in the library, I picked up a book called Invincible. It wasn't Marvel, wasn't DC. I just picked it because it said Invincible in the bright yellow letters. And I didn't know I would be a fan from that moment on until it came out with the show.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'm a huge fan of Invincible, man. It does something that DC and Marvel just doesn't do. It just satiates something in me.
I could see that. I could see that. I think it's super ironic. I mean, the series itself, I believe, is creeping on its 20th year anniversary. The series was
Yeah,
created in 2003. What a lot of people don't know is that it was created alongside The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead just took off first, which led to that being adapted into television shows, made for TV movies, video games, its own
just goes to
conventions.
show the greatest content comes from comic books.
Yeah. But could you imagine that writing two books and one of them literally makes you millions of dollars and you're just still getting on doing the other one for fun in a bit of a ways, only for about 20 years after people being like, "Oh, wait, that book is good too. Here's a animated series. Here's a live action one that they're seemingly working on." So like it's almost being rediscovered for the classic that it is. And the thing is, they I want to say it ended not too long ago, like 2 or 3 years ago, the series Invincible.
Yeah,
So they
basically.
have about 15 years worth of content if they want to
Hmm.
really delve into it. I think they probably breached the first volume in season one or something like that. So they still have so much more to go. But when it comes to this sort of prequel episode, before we get into the details of it, what'd you think?
I enjoyed it. I hold on, let me get all my emotions together. This was a great origin story, just off the sheer amount of tragedy there was. But there was hope and there was courage. There was hands being thrown. There was
Yeah,
monsters, but overall, I enjoyed it. I loved it. I love retroactive storytelling where they just where a story keeps going forward, but here's a side thing or a spinoff that shows what happened before the main story. That shows
yeah,
about a character or something or a certain event. I love that. I love retroactive storytelling because I enjoyed Adam Eve as a character in Invincible, and I always asked the question like, where did she get her powers from? Is she an alien? Is she a mutant? Like, what is she? Like, I had so many questions because she was so powerful.
yeah,
Adam, Eve, you literally manipulate what everything is made up of, even the
yeah.
air. So I had so many questions, and when they dropped this special, I was like, thank you so much. Y'all hear me?
He's he's basically like a combination Firestorm and Green Lantern almost.
Yeah.
And
Oh
that's
yeah, and
OP.
the energy constructs, facts,
That's super
facts. I never
OP.
even thought about that.
Yeah. Well, I thought about when she had the little mech suit. That just screamed Green Lantern to me when she put on
The
little mech suit.
little like the
Yeah. Obviously the series, I believe, the animation style takes heavily from anime if it's not just straight up considered anime. And I think you see that the most in the villains that she faces off in this. Those fight scenes felt like they were straight off like some of the most grotesque anime horror
brutal.
kind of stuff there. Um but the voice acting is still incredibly amazing. They have some incredibly dense music drops. Like I don't recognize the songs, but whenever they put like
Same.
one of those sad songs in during a moment, it gives the level of emotion that I feel like it should. I feel like it has to. And it's interesting
Straight
to
up.
see.
I was having Rick and Morty moments when they dropped those sad songs
Yeah, that's
in the show. It's
bro.
like,
That's a hundred
oh,
percent what it is. That's 100% what it is. But they managed to do it. And Eve herself has never really been portrayed as a damsel in distress, neither in the comics nor in the show. So it's interesting to see how the character ends up developing, and I think you can watch this before you watch Invincible episode one, and it will give you a bit of a background on some of these characters and where their heads are at. But I thought this was very well done. I also think that the length of it possibly helped out. It's just a crisp
oh
hour.
yeah.
They get in, they get out. The story is told. There's not really much room for fat in this, and I think that was very well done. Um, and it's weird because this is another origin story, and I spent a lot of time last week hemming and hawing over the formulaic nature of origin stories. But I don't think you should change the recipe. I think I shouldn't be able to taste it, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying?
It
Like,
does. It does.
that's all it is. I shouldn't be able to taste it. And the most I will say this felt like something I've seen before is at in parts and in places it's the one of the best versions of the Dark Phoenix sort of elements that I've seen. But if Jean had a conscience and had a little bit more of a grip on grip on things. But yeah,
Just a little bit.
I really really like this, and I really really liked how everything was done. But if you are ready, we can go ahead and get fully into our recap and review of Invincible Adam Eve.
Let's get it. Oh, wait, hold on. Question.
Sure.
Uh, I guess the dude that Cecil replaced, was that
Hmm.
voice act by Lance Reddick? Reddick?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Erickson.
Erickson. Okay.
Erickson. Yeah, it was voiced by Lance Reddick.
Because as soon
Y-
as I heard, I was like, yo, oh, rest in peace.
yeah, I think even the Phase Two was voiced by Jacob Tremblay, who I believe has voiced Damien on the Harley Quinn show when he's like 12 or whatever.
Yes. I
So
knew that voice
that's
sounded familiar.
yeah, that's pretty interesting too. They had for like I was pretty surprised by the people that they were able to get in on this because I believe let me see real quick. Yeah, well, Stephen Young, obviously, Sandro and J.K. Simmons. That's the Grayson family. But Lauren Cohen is in this. Walking Dead, right? They're alum. Phil
Right.
Lamar, obviously. Carrie Payton, Lance Reddick. Stephen Root plays
Ooh.
Brandywine. Which
Heavy
I thought
hitted
that was a
names in the voice acting game.
yeah. But yeah, let's get right into it. So, our little special starts off with the Guardians of the Globe confronting the Lizard League. Certain society,
I'm about to
Lizard
say
League.
Serpent Society, the Royal Flush Gang.
Yeah, yeah. The Lizard League is breaking into a lab looking for a serum. The Guardians are doing well, but are down a few members because of incidents occurring around the globe. They are the Guardians of the Globe, if you will. They mention how they called in a reservist, and Omni-Man arrives just in time to stop War Woman from being crushed by debris. Elsewhere, in a lab, a scientist ushers a pregnant woman out of the facility and into a car, and she makes him promise that whatever happens, he must look after the child. She begins to go into labor, and he apologizes for what he's done to her, but we don't know exactly what that is. Suddenly, he gets a call from his supervisor, Erickson, who demands he bring her to him at all costs because she is carrying an important specimen. The scientist, Dr. Brandyworth, defies his orders and brings her to a hospital instead, while her contractions cause her to blast beams of pink light from her orifices. It's got the urgency, right? The pace is up.
Mhm.
We've got some mystery. Who's this woman? Who's this man? Why is she blasting out pink lights out of her face?
Right, she about to give birth to a pink Power Ranger. What's going on here?
What'd you think about Brandywine not going to back to the facility, choosing to go to the hospital?
I I love that. I like that art with a scientist. When a scientist just realize like what they're doing is finally they realize like what they're doing is unethically, it's horrible, and they turn
Yeah,
coat. I love that trope. I love it. I instantly was like, okay, we got this Professor Farnsworth, Doc Brown, Nobel Prize winner. All right, okay. How though?
yeah, and I think another interesting aspect is it often science often seems like the ends justify the means, right? If you did
Right,
experiments on 50 people, all to solve cancer, and they all the 50 people die, but you done saved 50 million, then it kind of evens out, kind of there. But
right.
we see with this, with Brandyworth, that it's not worth. It's not worth what he's
Oops.
going through. He's definitely going through a crisis of conscience. Um, so, and again, he apologizes for what he did to her, which again, I'm saying they're like, what did you do to her, bro? Like, what do you mean
Right.
that what I did to you?
Also, I
Um,
appreciated the fight that we got with the Guardians of the Globe because in Invincible, they got holed entirely, and we
you're
didn't get to
right. You're
see
right.
what they're the Guardians of the Globe, but this alien just hold them. So what could but we finally get to
Yeah,
showcase all their abilities. I wish we could see like Red Rush in there and the analog for Batman, Darkwing or whatever.
yeah, yeah.
It'd been dope to see
But
the whole roster, but they were throwing hands.
like you said, it doesn't seem like much of a feat if you can't see what they're capable of, right? It doesn't seem like much of a
Right,
feat to take them all down. But I love the little inside joke that Omni Man doesn't like to be called a reservist or whatever, and War Woman is like, what else would you call him? And they're like, you obviously don't know anything about men. And she's like, it's cool, I don't need to know anything about men. Like she's
right.
totally off
I'm
of
like,
it.
she's a whole Wonder Woman analog.
Yeah, 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 yeah. He brings her to an emergency room and warns the physicians that the woman is carrying a superhuman and they should be ready for the unexpected. Almost on cue, the pregnant woman cries out in pain, and beams of pink light cause an electrical field to attack everyone in the room with her. Suddenly, Erickson and his armed men burst into the hospital only to find Brandyworth, who says the specimen didn't survive the labor. Erickson demands his men search for the bodies while Brandyworth weeps in the background. We meet the Wilkins couple, who are upset because their child died in labor, only to be surprised by a healthy baby girl they are told is their daughter. They gleefully accept this baby as their own and name her Samantha Eve Wilkins. That was a bit suspicious, right? Like, I know
A
we
little
done
bit.
told you that she died, but here's your healthy baby girl.
I
And
like that he did that.
so I like that he did that, but I feel like doing this under false pretenses creates a lot of trauma for Eve as a child.
Whoo-wee.
Like, had they just
I,
been able to
I,
talk to them
I,
for a second, right? Like, I think if Brandy Ward was able to talk to them for a second, hey, listen, I understand, and I just need to watch over this. That something's going to develop when she gets older, but whatever. But like, just leaving them on the doorstep like this, while I understand, it did definitely give her a brighter future than being captured by Erickson. With no explanation, it puts her in a very rough position because the way that half of her parents handle her abilities is a bit harsh. It's a bit rough, you know?
ooh, talk about. I hate the dad. We're gonna get into it, but I hate the dad. I hate that motherfucker.
He's immature, right? Like for a father, I feel like he's a little
Poor,
immature. Like he's getting into name calling fights with his daughter. I'm like, what are you doing?
like, what are you doing? I wouldn't even. If I had a
Ridiculous.
child, I'm not about to argue with my child. You're gonna do what I say, regardless. I'm about to argue with you. Go to your room. Bye.
No, it's ridiculous. We get a montage of Samantha growing up and developing an interest in the atomic structure of things. This freaks her parents out, who think something's wrong with her. One day, Samantha's babysitter finds out that Samantha is basically a genius when it comes to molecules. This only makes her parents more concerned because she doesn't display anything like exceptional reading skills to be able to understand such complex scientific, uh, you know, concepts, which I think is interesting, right? Like she's super good at molecules, but like can't read past her grade level. She can't, she's not doing math past her grade
Right?
level. She just has an
A in science,
intricate, yeah,
C's and D's and everything else.
she just has a very intricate understanding of these molecules. And again, without any real reason given to them, the parents don't know what the hell's going on.
And I thought that was weird, like on the parents. Like, if you don't know what your kid is doing, you should do everything you can to try to understand your child instead of just writing them off as something, you know? Is
And
that
the
just me?
biggest
I'm not a
thing,
parent, but that's
no,
just the
no, no.
innate passion in me.
I think it's very important, and this is kind of my beef, my longest running beef in comic book movie history with Pa Kent from Man of Steel. I feel like in a scary situation like that, it's the parent's job to be brave because the kid doesn't know
Facts.
nothing that's going on, has absolutely no clue, and you already know that they're going to be scared. So to be scared before they get scared, it seems a bit iffy. And what are you scared of? You're scared of how other people are going to interpret this. The person that you're looking at is who you love. That should be the most important person in this entire equation, not what the guy across the street is saying, or not what should have I let those kids drown? Well, maybe. Like, what are you talking about? Craziness, absolutely craziness. And like we were just talking about, her father decides that she's not gifted, she's just weird. That's the words that come out of his mouth when she's not around, and that seems a bit harsh. That wasn't brought up out of
That
anger
was
or
rude.
anything. It was brought up out of frustration, I guess, not being able to understand her. But just to out and out say that your kid is weird feels wrong. Again, not a
It
parent,
is.
but like, what the hell? Wrong to you because of whatever your upbringing is, and obviously it's not that great that you're willing to abandon your uh whoever your child is for any little given reason. But yeah, I don't like that guy. I think you're 100% right about that. But when he finds out that the neighbors have been talking about her, then he decides he's going to sign her up for a school for gifted children, basically to get her out of the neighborhood, which again, super jacked. We're going to bus her to a whole nother school so that the neighbors don't talk about how weird she is because she's outside staring at trees, God forbid. It's ridiculous, bro. Bruv. So wrong.
I
And
I
Brandyworth is watching from a distance, not scary at all, not stalkerish or scary at all. Brandyworth is just watching the development of this small child from a distance.
nothing wrong with that at all. Just perfectly normal. It's
No,
fine.
not
I wish
not
they showed more of what he was doing because like to live on the streets for that amount of time, watching someone grow up, like how did he survive? Like
and
dude
he would
was
also have to
ragtag.
avoid all the places that they would look for him. He simultaneously has to stay off the grid while also trying to survive while also staying off the grid.
Like my man was whole ass Obi-Wan Kenobi watching Luke.
Yeah, because we go through a moment later on where Eve goes looking for him and doesn't find him at any other spots that she would think a homeless man would be. So he has
Right.
to avoid free food, free clothes. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot. It's a whole lot. I think it's
For
super interesting.
years.
Yeah. Yeah. At least 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
It's a whole
Yeah.
lot. Um, but let's get back into it because she's about to go to a new school. The next thing we see is Erickson's backup plans for the lost specimen. Another child experiment only known as Phase 2, whose body grossly mutates out of his control. Erickson remarks that the experiment is a failure and still looks to replicate what he created with Samantha. Talk to me about Phase 2, bro. What do you think about this blonde sort of?
I when I first saw him, I was like, oh, experiment 626. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, right?
But when I saw, I was like, okay, we have a Weapon X Plus program here. Of course, the U.S. government has some clandestine group of scientists and engineers working to make super soldiers. Of course they do. Why not? I mean, this is a comic book based thing. But
Yeah.
I was shocked, I guess, how different from Eve to these new batch of weapons, I guess that they made. Like they didn't get close to old Brandyworth's formula like at
No.
all.
No. And the kids seemingly are in pain, or at least this one, right?
Yeah, like oh my God, oh Lord, God, it's coming back to me how they all just perished. The
That's what
Lord,
I'm saying. Whenever they're not being yelled at for not being perfect, they are shoved into tubes and sent there to be like in a weird stasis. And yeah, my man is basically trying to create something incredibly dangerous, um, so that he can sell it to the government, some sort of government weapon, because that's what Eve was supposed to be this entire time.
thank God she wasn't because that there are certain things I believe the U.S. government isn't allowed to have, and one is a super being. I mean, you know what? It depends on who's the president at the time.
Yeah, yeah,
Because you can send someone over to stop some shit, but like, is that in the best interest of the world or is that the best interest of America?
right. No, 100%. She would have been like a Doctor Manhattan. She would have just been coming through and, you know, uh,
Just swafting
blowing,
everything.
yep, blowing folks the hell up. But things seem to be getting a bit better for Samantha because she makes a new
Yeah.
friend from across the street, and they stay friends for years. Things are still rough at home as an argument gets heated, causing Sam's dad to call her a freak. Bad parenting, bad
Bad
parenting,
parenting
bro.
101, man. Like I
He's like, that's why
literally
you go to
hate
that
that
freak
dad.
school because you're a freak, right? And I'm like, what the hell?
I was like, yo,
I'm like, what are
yo. And then the mom is enabling. She
we?
didn't say
Yeah.
nothing. She didn't say like, "John, watch your mouth." Like I wish I would say that to my child and not expect like a backhand to the back of the head, like or something like I knew you have to know that you're out of pocket talking to your child like that.
Later
And
on, we get the just the black and white kind of heavy handed. Why can't you just be normal? Kind of, she almost straight up says it, which is, I assume, a statement heard from many a youth nowadays, as I believe that um, the social landscape has changed so greatly in the last 10, 15 years. You got to imagine some guy in 2005 was like, I'm going to play video games and stream for a living. And somebody was like, why don't you just be normal? You know, and some guys like, I'm gonna do 30-minute comedy sessions on this app and I'm just gonna put it out, and that's what we're gonna do for a job. It's like, why don't you just be normal? What's normal, what was considered normal a long time ago, that has completely changed for good, bad, or indifferent. We live in a
completely.
different world. Yeah, and the idea that you're not going to sympathize with your child just because times have changed is heartbreaking, because they hope that you are able to hold their hand and lead them through this very confusing world, very, very, very confusing world. And I feel like her dad kind of abandoned her in that journey. He's kind of let
A little
go of her
bit.
hand and sort of said, "Well, you figure it out because you're weird," and that's jacked. It's jacked up, man. Absolutely
Bad
jacked up.
parenting.
That parenting.
101.
Upset, Sam goes into her room and cries. It is at this moment she realizes that she has the power of subatomic transmutation, meaning she can reconfigure the atomic
Powerful.
construction of any physical matter into anything else. She shows her best friend this, knowing she can confide in her, but this only freaks her out and they literally stop being friends. My heart broke, bro. My
Same.
heart.
Cause I was like, yo, cut like
Do you think she
I
came on too hard? What do you think it was?
I I think it I think that was that's weird. I think that her friend is weird because any person with a best friend who got powers, we all saw that
Yeah.
movie with the
Ganky,
dudes
bro.
got
Spider Man's homeboy, right? Hey Ned, I got powers. That's amazing. How can I help? Is usually what
right?
happens next.
Dude, if my best friend got powers, I'm gonna do we're taking over the world. We're taking over the world. Like,
Taika
you know
Taika
something?
Waititi in Green Lantern. Taika Waititi is Ryan Reynolds' friend in Green Lantern, and he's like, "How can I help? Like, what do I do? You know?" And that's usually the answer. But in this case, it was like, "Yeah, we were better when I didn't know that about you," and basically
Messed
freaks
up.
her out to the point that they don't even talk. And what breaks my heart is I think like when you're that age and when you're super old, losses of a friendship like that can change your entire life.
Facts.
Your identity is
Facts.
tied with the people you're able to express your life experience with. There's going to be some lone wolf moments in your 20s and your 30s, etc., before you start a family and things, continue and progress. And then you'll get to a point where you're old and your circle gets small again. And those, like, I remember, this is a crazy tangent, but I remember there's an episode of Better Call Saul where he is trying to
Ah,
guilt an old woman into doing something. So to do so, he starts spreading rumors amongst her old friends and they stop hanging with her. And you just see like they're walking across the street and like she'd be like, "Hey," and they like put their hands down and and because she doesn't know
damn.
why they're not messing with her anymore, she gets very sad. And I'm just like, damn, like again, you sometimes people don't understand how important these interpersonal relationships are until you take them away. And this is all Eve had. She had nothing at home. She knew what she was getting at when she got home. She couldn't show any of her powers at school and was definitely discouraged from ever showing anyone else after the Val situation. If Val didn't accept her, why would she roll the dice on anybody else? That was supposed to be her homie. So
Facts.
it's a small moment, and although she deserves better than Val, it's heartbreaking to see her lose her. Like to the point of like being ignored across the street. Like, hey Val, like nothing. It's heartbreaking stuff.
Right, especially when they were just standing like that, like 5 feet apart at the bus stop, not talking for like
That's rough,
months and
bro.
then years. I was like, yo, that's real. Cause that
Yeah,
I've seen that. It's happened to me. Like
yeah.
you be friends with someone, then something happens next day, y'all just not cool no more. And then y'all
You're on the
just see
outside.
each other, and then now y'all strangers, and then y'all just don't know each other no more. Like
Yeah.
that's
And that's when
real.
you already feel like a freak, possibly for having acne or being short or not having the best hair. She has superpowers. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you thought you felt awkward, like she feels like an absolute freak in this instance, and is kind of being told that by the people who love her the most. So
Right.
it's a lot. It's a lot of trauma at a young age. Um, so she both ostracized at home and at school, Samantha begins to lose interest in everyday regular life. She attempts her powers on a squirrel, trying to turn it into a puppy, but it doesn't work.
Thank
Suddenly she
God.
sees, yeah, right. I was wondering what she was trying to do. Thank God they gave her the line like turn into a puppy or something like that, because I thought she was just trying to like explode it. I thought like we were at the like
Yeah.
uh I thought we were at the magnifying glass and ants sort of moment here where she's like, you know what? freak everything, and it starts with the animals, right? That Jeffrey Dahmer shit starts with the animals first. So I was like, I was really trying to see where this was all going. And we see our old, dirty, unkempt man watching her from afar, and she's unaware that it is Brandyworth. That night, out of boredom, she makes a mask to hide her identity and sneaks out to explore the city and use her powers. She creates a floating disc she can use to ride through the air and has a blast mastering this new skill, and even manages to stop a robbery. Brandyworth shows up and promises to explain where she came from. He says that her parents are not her real parents and that he made her. He was the assistant director of the Pentagon's Department of Superhuman Research, who has been on the run to protect his greatest project, Samantha herself. He explains Samantha has limitless potential and was meant to be the government's greatest weapon. He mentions her ability to feel things at the atomic level and see molecules. He also explains that he put a safeguard so she can't change people or animals. She asks
Thank
why he,
you.
yeah, right, exactly. And we see what can happen without these safeguards, without these things in place with her siblings, and we'll get into in a bit. She asks why he turned up now, and he mentions to her that her using her superpowers might alert the government to the fact that she's still alive. If the military discovers she isn't dead, they will come after her. He begs her not to use her powers anymore, but she doesn't seem convinced, so she flies away only to be caught on a drone's surveillance footage. She sneaks back in, startling her worried mother, who shows frustration over not being able to understand her. This is the "why can't you just be normal" scene. And I will say that the actress playing the mother did show like visible frustration, right? Where she's like, "Damn it, I
Right,
just need you to
yeah.
try harder," or something like that. Like, um, but it's rough.
And that's so weird for me. Like you, I mean, there's almost 8 billion people on this planet, so that means there's like 8 billion different personalities. But certain personalities can be just all grouped together. She could have did better as a mom. Like you could have accepted your child as she is and just encouraged her to be all that she can be. But no, you enabled your husband. You let her feel lesser than herself. You don't
There's
really
a
love
bit of
her. What's going
yeah.
on here?
There's a bit of like, why can't you stop annoying my husband?
Yes.
Right? Like, why can't you not be an issue? And like, what is it like? Children are better like not seen and not heard, or whatever, or seen and not heard kind of situation.
Yeah.
She's like, why can't you just be something that doesn't bother us? you know?
Messed up. Messed up. I'm like, if you a parent, kids gonna bother you regardless.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like they just couldn't handle it, I guess. But like me, I'd be ecstatic if my child had powers. Like we will be the new emperors of this mud ball.
It almost makes the scene where they get Eve even more like sadly poetic, because they were crying for this child. They were crying for a child to be alive that they could take home.
Yeah.
And when given that opportunity, and again, Eve, I think, besides having powers not to be understood, is a polite, well-mannered, smart, kind child. She's not breaking things just to break things. She's acting out, but because she's not being understood. But past that, like they seem to be putting their hands up, and it's not that big of a deal in my opinion. Like I just
Same.
can't understand you, and I'm like, did you try? I don't think you guys
Like,
even
did y'all
tried.
try?
Yeah,
Like,
they do that in The Simpsons. The Ned's parents take him to a therapist because
oh,
he's all flipping out and breaking things and kind of like cussing under his breath. And they're like, "What have you guys done?" And the parents go, "We've tried nothing, and we're all out of ideas." And I'm like, "Yeah, this is basically what happened here. They've tried nothing, but they're also out of ideas." Which is spells bad for Miss Adam Eve.
a little bit.
That night out of board, oh, we did that. Yes, she did the floating disc thing. They told her about that she can't change animals. Um, talk yeah. While look. And then she cries herself to sleep. That's jacked up. Erickson reviews the drone footage and is certain that the flying woman is the specimen he lost years ago. While looking for Brandyworth, Eve does battle with Kill Cannon. Kind of looks like KG Beast a little bit.
A little
Um,
bit.
a little bit.
And the KG Beast and yeah, no, this KG Beast. I forgot it. It was someone else, but I just forgot him. Oh,
you
Claw.
might, yeah, yeah. I give you claw. I give you claw. Even though she's fairly new at this, she shows some skill. And what I say is, what's worse is some relentlessness. Knowing what she can do when she gets mad in combat, I get a little bit afraid.
Same. She was powerful. I love the trope of the montage of when the kid gets the powers and they just go exploring and using their powers and just seeing what they
Yeah,
can do. She knew then on when she made that flying disc that she was flying on that she was strong and
yeah,
fighting old KGB's archetype looking motherfucker.
yeah.
She knew from then on.
Even when she stopped the robbery and she turned those guys' hats or helmets or masks into like steel, and they their heads just went down to the ground. Like um, there's an eagerness to test these boundaries,
Oh
and she
yeah.
has an anger in her from the resentment she's been given. And usually that spells disaster. So I was a bit cautious as to where this was going to go. But yeah, she is able to stop Kill Cannon, and then Brandyworth shows up because he has like a spider sense or something, right? Every time she seems to be doing one of these things, um, she is able to disable the villain, but he shows up. He scolds her again for using her powers. She introduces herself as Atom Eve and mentions that she's a badass, but he still thinks that she should use caution. They discuss her parents over a burger. This broke my heart because they're like, she's like, what was my mom? And like some like smart scientist, and he's like, yeah, she was a colleague. She was a
She's a
colleague
college,
of
she's my lab
mine.
assistant.
And then they show it, and she's just a homeless pregnant woman on the street that he paid to experiment on. Like that's super dark. Cause like she would have just been cattle at that point,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Um, so
Super
yeah,
dark.
really, really dark. He monitored her and they became close, and he promised her that Samantha wouldn't grow up in a lab alone. She went into labor too early to escape, but Brandyworth did what he could to give Sam a normal life. This conversation is interrupted by sirens, so Adam Eve goes to investigate. She sees a standoff between the police and a group of grotesque mutated children with various abilities. The group are like living zombies and are breaking down as the result of constant experimentation. When one dies in front of her, Eve demands they explain themselves. How gnarly was those effects of like just it literally felt like the stress of them living for too long just caused them to evaporate. What do you think about the animation style there?
I was digging it because it was something. It's something like I said before, like Marvel doesn't do it or DC doesn't do it because Invincible is taking those beats from anime that just brings those fight scenes, those cinematography, the choreography to life that gives weight to each action, movement, line that these characters are delivering. I
Yeah,
was all for it. As soon as she clotheslined one of them into a car and he reformed himself and then started to fall apart. I was like, oh, the powers are burning
yeah,
them out. They can't survive outside the tube. All the
yeah,
unstable molecules, is all the things.
yeah. And the thing is, we've again, why you would think that I would be like, oh, I've seen it, because this is comic books 101, right? How
Yeah.
many villains have been created as a result of trying to recapture the Cap, stuff, the
Oh my
Hulk stuff,
God. Or
the Weapon
Hulk stuff
X
or the
of it all.
Wolverine stuff,
Yeah,
right?
a
How
hundred
many
percent.
copies of them are?
We've seen it a million times before. Only one specimen was able to withstand, the toxicity or intensity or whatever it is of what they try to experiment with, and everybody else is a failure. Um, and Eve, who doesn't really feel like she belongs, is about to find out that she does have a second family. Might be the most jacked up one though, um, because the leader, Phase Two, explains that they are all siblings, all created to be improvements on the formula that made Samantha what she is. She is Phase One. Believing that makes her superior, Eve goes to battle with her so-called siblings, who have incredible dexterity and durability. Soon, Eve is outnumbered, but she uses her skills and intelligence to take them down one by one, which enrages Phase 2 as he sees his fellow experiments dying due to the stress of the battle. Eve uses her powers to create a mech suit of sorts, but the fight spills out into the freeway, endangering civilians. This is when I started getting stressed out because Phase 2 is actively trying to chase and beat her up, and she's like, "Bro, we'll die. Like there's cars and shit." And he's like, "I don't what do I care? I don't give a damn." And I'm like, "Oh, we there, we there. We
I'm
literally
like, yeah,
this is
we
again
paused, we crossed that line.
cliche freeway fight, but I'm still here for it. It's right there, throwing the cars and everything, trying to save the civilians. It's all there." Um, so
The whole fight,
fa-
I like the way I love how quickly she grasped on how quick she can use her powers because it's all imagination. She, like you said
yeah,
before, them energy constructs. She was making like bridges for cars. When they throw a car, she grabs the car, gets the civilians out and whip it right back at them in one swift
yeah.
motion. I'm like, that's anime right there.
And she's got no training. No one has sat down and taught her how to do any of this stuff. This is all her ingenuity. This is all her heart. This is all her brain.
Yeah.
I like when they have her pinned down on the road, and then she's like, "What road?" And she literally makes the road disappear, and they fall down. Like the world and reality is what she wants it to be, which is very much why the government wants her. Um, Phase two explains his frustrations of always hearing how perfect Eve was and how imperfect he and his siblings were. Him and another experiment pummel Eve, and that's true. Like all the violence in this. At one point, she has like a gash in her shoulder, like a it's just like
Yeah.
a chip taken out of her whole
Like
ass shoulder.
I completely closed, mouth and nose bleeding. They jumped her. They say, fight back,
Yeah,
let's fight back. Like they were
they're just
Jane her.
bro. It was so crazy. They're just sitting there pummeling on her, and I'm like, this is a lot. What do you think about when old boy like used his hand to grab pieces of rock? Like he morphed his hand into like being like this goo and just attacked. It's like almost when you punch the glass with the taped hands, and now you have a hand for
Yeah.
the glass. And he just beat her with this club of a hand covered in rocks. I'm sitting there like, damn, this is kind of the
This is
Invincible I remember. This is
right.
the stakes that I remember. Um, they're beating on her and they're pummeling on her until a car randomly hits one of them and leaves phase two alive. The driver was Brandyworth, who is thrown from the vehicle but is saved by Adam Eve. Desperate, Eve asks Brandyworth why she can't do what they do, and he explains he put a safeguard in place with her and wasn't around to do the same with them. Phase two literally breaks down in front of Eve, almost evaporating in her arms. He says a tearful goodbye and passes away, and Sam passes out from exhaustion. Erickson shows up and has the two apprehended and brought to his lab. And I'm like, damn. I was like, we avoided it this whole ass time, and then it's gonna happen now. Damn. Um. So, yep. Brandyworth begs Erickson to let Eve go, even promising he'll make another. I'm like, bro, that's a hell of a promise. You know, I'll just make another one. Don't
Right.
even worry about it. We see Eve is restrained, but she tries to plead with Erickson to leave Brandyworth alone. When Erickson refuses, she breaks out of her restraints like nothing. I love how the guy's like, "Well, I assumed they would
They were,
work."
they were, they were, he said they are, I did say they were theoretical.
Yeah. He's like, "What do you want me to do?" So I thought that was really, really funny, and like I said, just weird, poignant, funny moments in this. So that her breaking out of restraints though causes Erickson to point a gun at Brandyworth. He also has a surprise. Again, when I think that this show can't get dark enough, when I think that whatever I've seen on the screen, I'm like, all right, I'm ready digging in. I don't need no more motivation for anything. I'm Gucci. They they unearth and reveal the reanimated brain dead body of her mother,
That
hooked
took
up
me
to
out, Sway.
tubes. Bro, I'm like, what is this show doing? Absolutely bug. Everything on paper was bad enough already. Like I'm already on her side. You know what I'm saying? You don't need to do anything else. I'm already on her side. I already want Erickson to die. I'm down with Brandyworth being part of this weird hodgepodge family, whatever the hell this whole
But
situation is.
no, they want to throw gasoline on that fire of emotion. It makes us hate them even more. Using her brain dead mom as a breeding machine
Yeah,
for
just to pump
superpower
babies
kids.
out. And then like Brandyworth, who again, for whatever reason, did fall for Eve's mother. He flips out. He's like, "Oh, she was still alive," and they're like, "Well, not really." She was brain dead, but she was only ever useful for one reason anyway. And like just the callous nature in which all of that is said, Brandyworth flips the hell out, because this is literally sickening, and he goes on to kind of jump on Erickson, which causes Erickson to shoot his gun, which manages to not only kill the mother because he shoots like the the tube that she's in, and she gets shot and she dies. But he
Oh, the ricochet
accidentally,
bullet. Oh my
yeah, he
God.
accidentally shot Brandy Worth as well.
That one
So
caught me. That one got me off guard. I was like, "Yo, you shot him in the head?
I
What
remembered it
the
happening, right? But when it happened, um, when I saw it for a second time and wrote it down, I was like, wow, like all in one moment. And not only that, all this is in one day. This entire all that he's been dealing with in this one day.
He had a rougher
Bonkers.
day than Thor.
Yeah, man. This is some bonkers stuff. So, um, my girl goes full Phoenix mode because she ain't trying to hear nothing from nobody. Distressed over losing an entire family she never knew in a single day, and she mind wipes Erickson. She goes like, "I am Eve, Samantha Eve Wilkins, and like I dare you to come looking for me or to
To
remember that I
defy
even
me.
exist." And then boom, wipes their minds. And I'm like, damn. I was kind of thinking that she was breaking the safeguard.
Right.
I
I
was
was
I
I
was
thought she was too. I literally was about I was fearing for the earth when she went on Phoenix mode.
I was super concerned as to what she was gonna do to these men, given given her anger and her ability. Super duper 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 scared. Um, but yeah, she kind of just lets him go once she wipes his mind. She goes back home, sick to her stomach over the day's events, only to realize that she missed a birthday party created by her parents. Um, I, Here's a question for you: what do you think
What's
it
up?
was about the cake being eaten that flipped her out?
Just the just the disrespect. Like I couldn't wait.
Yeah, because the
Like
cake
it's
is
my
for me,
cake.
right? The cake is for the event. If you're eating the cake, you've almost taken the more importance of the cake than it is her getting the cake, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's totally that's literally what it is. Because you're
Because
supposed to present it to her and all that, so she can like eat it and blow out the candles. But y'all ruin that. Y'all take that away by eating it.
I do feel like it's a small transgression, but that transgression on top of everything she dealt with that day speaks so much.
That was the last straw for her,
It
definitely.
speaks so much as to her value in that family, you know. And they kind of chew her out, and she's like, you know what, I gotta go. And the way that they're able to voice act that, like you could just tell she's like over it, like she's exhausted, tired, frustrated, heartbroken, all of it, and she just decides to go upstairs and kind of deal with it on her own. Um, and
I like
while
that
she's
scene.
go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say while she's walking away, he says, "Like it or not, we're the only family you got." She gets into her room and using her powers, she transforms a picture of her and the Wilkins into her and her experimental siblings, Brandyworth and her
Yeah,
mother.
that was
Um,
about to say. I love that moment when she turned her family photo into her actual family photo.
yeah. It's also super dark because they never it looked like the kids before they got experimented on.
Yeah, which was that like you just said, super dark. I was like, oh my God, that's what they would have looked like. That's what they were supposed to look like.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow,
and
US government, you ain't shit.
I think that's a perfect word too. Supposed to, like, all of the what was Lee's life supposed to be, and I think she's still trying to figure that out because the one that she's living ain't making her happy. The people that she's with ain't making her happy. I want to say maybe they even do it in the series, but I know specifically in the comics, doesn't she just leave? I feel like in the comics at one point she just bounced, went to another country for a bit, lived there on her own. I vaguely remember her being a humanitarian for a little bit because she had the powers, and
Yeah,
she's like, what am I doing at home with them? Like, I don't need to
yeah,
be Samantha. The world doesn't need Samantha at all. Like another regular girl. So I'm going to be Adam Eve and I'm going to go around and save the world. Um, so yeah, super dense, super dark, still had some heart, definitely had some spectacle with the fights. And then we meet the debut of Duct Tape Man. Uh,
Meanwhile, this is what Mark Grayson was up to.
and we see Mark Grayson trying out superhero names in case he gets his powers, which his parents doubt he will. And in a master class, we see his father, Omni Man, happy dad facade slip away momentarily to reveal a more sinister side, and then even that slips away to reveal a tragic side. And just
Just
those
all
couple of
those
moments and
emotions.
and the emotions, I said, "Damn," because you see it in like, "Oh, I'm the happy dad," and then he gets angry, like, "How dare this woman think she could just boss me around?" And then like, they don't know what's to come. They don't know what all this is for.
And
And
right, and then then him like, I actually love her. I like her.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I can't believe what I'm gonna have to do, kind of stuff. And wow, wow. Again, this might have been the sequel. I mean, the sequel, the cure for origin storyitis, because I really dug this, even though there's certain things that I think have been done before. But besides making this, they didn't give this the squeaky clean sequel that I feel like the formulaic sequel that a lot of people get. Very
All
few
right.
origin stories deal with parents that don't dig their superhero kid. You know, it's usually that their
Very
superhero kid
few
lies
origin
to them
stories
all the
have
time.
parents in them at all.
That's true as well. That's true as well. And it's easy, not easy, partially easy to write a story where they don't have parents. And then they could wonder what life would be like with them. But what happens when you have ones that don't accept you? That's almost seemingly worse than not having them, right? Because
Yeah.
it's one thing to not to have the void of that guidance, the void of that support, and that void of that love, you know, to have that empty hole. But they're actively shoving poison in that hole. Like, you know, like it's bad enough that she don't have that love, but they're even putting poisonous ideas in her mind, like she's not normal, and that she's a freak and she goes to a freak school because she's a freak. I hope that dad trips down the stairs and lands on a fork or something like that. I don't
A
know
little
exactly
bit.
what.
Hits his balls on the bottom stair before he falls or something.
Yeah, but
Because
what a perfect tease though for Invincible season 2. I'm super hyped to have this thing return.
same. I hope they do more these spin-offs. I really
Yeah.
hope they do. I'm really I hope they might do Rex Flow. Like his origin is really tragic
Oh
if you
yeah, it
read it.
is. Yeah, Rex Blodes is pretty
Oh
rough.
my God.
Rex, I
And
think
it would
even
wholly explain why he's an asshole.
you could also do. Is it Alan the alien?
Oh yeah, him
You
too.
could do. You
Alan
could.
could get an origin too.
You know, because he bulks up and starts joining the galactic like force and all that kind of stuff, and there's some pretty
Hmm.
interesting stuff there. The series itself did garner spin-offs. You know, they did spin-off stories for the teams. There eventually becomes a new Invincible. It's a whole thing. So I really
Hmm.
want to see if Amazon is willing to crack open all the lore that is Invincible and go to the gooey goodness that's inside. But we'll
Right.
have to wait until season 2 drops for that to happen. And you know we'll be
Ah,
around. We'll be around for it because we're around each and every week as part of the Major Issues podcast, knock on Vibranium. On occasion, things
knock on vibranium.
I try, bro. Now, on occasion, we might miss an episode here or there due to complications. Where I'm actively recording this episode about 8 hours removed from a hurricane that hit my town not too long ago. So sometimes the scheduling might not be right. Sometimes the attitude, to me personally, might not be right as far as getting caught up and dealing with this. But this is a labor of love. We do this free of charge each and every week as a level of enjoyment where I take enjoyment in it. I know A Rob does, and we provide enjoyment free of charge to you guys each and every week. And you can thank us in many ways. If you have disposable money that you'd like to give us, you can do it by giving us money by going to our T Public store. You can get that at www.comicbookclique.com. You hit that shop CBC link and you can buy some merchandise based on all kinds of cool comic book concepts, all designed by me. If you buy a shirt on there and we get a kickback, it's not a lot, but that does help keep the lights on here. So consider buying a piece of merch and we get a little bit of money there. If you want to give the money directly to us, consider joining our patreon.com/CBC Clubhouse for as little as 10 cents a day, $3 a month. You can help us afford the hardware and the software that we need to keep providing you guys free content. I've got some ideas brewing up. Invincible is available on Amazon Prime, which means that through Twitch, we are able to do watch parties. So I am heavily considering not only doing a watch party for Invincible season 2, but maybe possibly doing a recap watch party for Invincible season 1. Get everybody
Hey.
on the get everybody on the same page when it comes to that. But look out for stuff look out for stuff and news like that. And if you want to look out for that stuff, you got to be contacted with us all through social media, facebook.com/comicbookclick, Instagram at comicbookclick, or you can use the hashtag comicbookclick to talk about the newest, hottest, latest, and greatest things to come to comic books, comic book media. Don't forget, we're at Major Issue CBC on Twitter and at Major Issue CBC on Twitch. And if you know where the Major Issues podcast is, available on every podcast app around the globe: Podbean, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, the Apple Podcast app, TuneFind, YouTube, Spotify, and more. Whatever app you listen to us to, rate and review us. I would love it if you rate and review us on iTunes. It's the biggest podcast directory. But wherever you're catching this episode, rate and review this podcast so that other people can be recommended it, and we can find the audience that I know is out there looking for us. Pretend that the other ratings don't count. 5-star us all the way. We're both 5-star men, and this is a 5-star cast. So consider giving us 5 stars. So like I said, we could find other like-minded individuals that want to be tackling the latest and greatest that comes to comic books and comic book media, like we are here doing. What are you up to over there, A-Rob? What are you getting into?
Man, I'm getting to just this Marvel Snap.
Oh, snap.
That's all I've been getting into, is just playing Marvel Snap, man. It's Marvel's newest mobile game. I said it before, I say it again. It's highly addictive. If you love collecting,
I was just about to say newest
games,
addictive game, right?
It's so addictive. They recently just had a Twitch tournament, and it's been going. The following has been crazy. Y'all can follow me on Twitch at Omega Avenger 26. You can follow me on all the social medias at A-Rob the Marvel God. That's AYYROB the Marvel God.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and like I said, follow us on social media. We started this year with a little under 10,000 followers on our Facebook. We have just broken 16,000 as of this recording. So we're on track to double our numbers in a single year, and that's thanks to everyone who's listening to the podcast, sharing our posts, and following us throughout our social media. It's a banner year. We're seemingly just starting to get things right. Only took us a couple years, but I'm loving it. I'm loving the energy. I'm loving the support, and I'm loving the CBC family that we've built. So continue being a family member. Get on the bandwagon before the bandwagon gets full, because I've been to the future where the latest and greatest things come to comic books, comic book media. We're number one. I just can't tell you how we get there because it messes up the timeline. And the next thing you know, something Dwayne Johnson. And no one wants any of that. So just make sure that you're following us everywhere. ComicBookClique.com will link you literally to everything that we do. But just Google us, Comic Book Click. I'm very happy we do come up on Google. Same thing with the Major Issues podcast. But we will see you guys next week, where I don't know what we'll be tackling. But my name is George Serrano, aka the Don,
and I'm A-Rob the Marvel God,
and this has been our Invincible Adam Eve special presentation, recap, and review. And remember, it's important to revel in what you are. Remember, we are the Fireflies forever. Follow the light, and it will always lead you home. Always remember that you are part of the clique, and absolutely always remember that you, yes, you, are worthy.